Hi, so welcome back to Real Auto Reports right here from Real Auto Ranch. Today we have the real video, the real review on this 2014 Corvette Stingray. Yes, this is the all-new C7, and what we have here is the 1LT with the Z51 competition group on it. So there's a lot to talk about. It's a manual transmission, it's got a lot of power, and we can't wait to give you the details. So let's hop in and get going. All right, so here we are in the 2014 Corvette Stingray. Yes, the new C7 from Chevrolet. And this, I have to tell you, I am really excited about being able to drive this car. I think it is an enthusiast's dream. I think these new Corvettes have really come to deliver. And I'll tell you why during this real video. So let's get going in our manual transmission, 7-speed manual transmission Corvette here. So as we pull out of Real Auto Ranch, one of the things that you do have to remember, we always have a rise here coming up out of our driveway, is that you have to be very careful about the front end on these vehicles because they're still very low and they have that plastic that hangs down about that far around the edges to divert air. So you do want to be careful in low dips and things like that to make sure that you don't rip that plastic off or damage it. You also don't want to damage the fascia on these cars, especially one like this with the Z51 competition package and the aero kit that comes with it. So that's something that you're going to want to be careful about in this Corvette, in the new Stingray. This is a vehicle that, as I said, I was very excited to be able to drive, and I have to tell you that I think GM has really gotten it right this time. So in this vehicle you have a short throw 7-speed manual transmission, which takes a little bit of getting used to, because instead of your six pattern H, you have an 8 pattern H, with 7 being all the way up over here on the far right. Now, this vehicle also has a fairly heavy clutch, but as you can see, it really makes a good growl, and we have the performance exhaust in this vehicle. Now, right now, I have it in touring mode. And as we come to the stop here at the light, what you're going to notice is that you don't hear the exhaust a ton here at the light. It is just quiet. It has a little bit of a rumble. And you heard when I accelerated hard, it has that deep, throaty performance growl. And that's because the butterfly valves in the quad exhaust in the back, the 4 pipes, the outer exhaust pipes, the butterfly valves open, and basically what happens is it's bypassing the rear mufflers, so you get a full loud exhaust system. Now this vehicle is, I mean, everything about it's new, and that's just one of the things that you get with the Z51 competition package and some of the added options, like that performance muffler that adds 5 horsepower. So we have the 6.2 liter LT1 V8 in this vehicle. This is really, it's not the base because it does have the Z51 competition package, but if I shift, it does have a bunch of other options. And if I put it into sport mode, all of a sudden you notice right away from the stop, it's making more sound than it did before. And those modes are a function of the Z51 competition package and the magnetic ride control that is also optioned out on this particular 1LT Corvette. And what does that mean? Well, 1LT is basically your lower option group. And so what we have, you can get a 1LT with the Z51, that's what we have here. Then you're going to get a 2LT with the competition pack, 3LT, and so on, right? So that's going to be your upper end, the 3LT, with all the Gugas and all that. And then in 2015 model year, you're going to get the Z06 option, and that Well, that's just going to be insane, because this vehicle's base stone stock without all the Z51 options will be 455 horsepower. When you add the performance exhaust and the Z51 option, you're going to be 460 horsepower and what I believe should be still 460 foot-pounds of torque. I don't think the torque changes much with the Z51 option, but we'll double check that and flash it up on the screen for you here. But definitely 460 horsepower. And what's incredible is with the 4.8 technology in these vehicles now, and even the manual transmission, you are able to get what is an incredible, and has to be class leading in this kind of performance car, 17 miles per gallon in town and a 29 mile per gallon out on the freeway rating. And you can see that with the sport mode, you really get that growling sound all the time. And then if there's a track mode, and then if we go back to touring mode here, let's see, there we are, the regular T. It quietens down immediately. See, I'm on the gas, off the gas, and you don't hear the rumble that you would hear. All right, so what we have then is we've talked about the performance. This vehicle is ultimately performance driven, but it's got a lot of upgrades to other parts of the Corvette that people wanted to see. So you have the fantastic magnetic ride control suspension still, and I think it is vastly improved even. But because this vehicle rides beautifully in the touring mode, in the eco mode, and it has a wet weather mode, all which I believe are fantastic additions to the different drive modes in this vehicle. But also, even in track mode, when you're in the stiffest setting you're going to get, it is still a more pleasant ride than the 75th anniversary Corvette that we tested here at Real Auto Reports. That's going to be the convertible on our YouTube channel. And that Corvette, celebrating the anniversary, was the white with the blue, so the blue interior. And our biggest gripe in that model was that the interior just seemed cheap. The navigation and the touch screen and everything seemed down market, and you were paying $80-some thousand for that car, close to mid-80s, upper 80s even, and it just blew your mind that the interior didn't feel up to snuff. And that's what people complained about in the car review land, if you will, and also consumers in general. But the verdict was that the vehicle had so much power and so much performance that you had to still buy the car because it was just incredible. Well, now it's even more incredible, and look at this fantastic interior. You have in the sports package that we have, the Z51, if you will, you have this lovely suede wheel, very similar to the one we saw in 2013 model year, the 75th anniversary edition. Now notice out here on the highway, there's a little bit more road noise because this is a performance vehicle, and we have the target top, but it's still a lot quieter than I expected. Now back to the interior, the design is much nicer in this vehicle. You have this detail-oriented area here, can also double as a handle for your passengers. We have the aero seats with the suede inserts. You have all your steering wheel controls. These look like paddle shifters, but you know that I have a manual transmission here. Well, this is for your rev matching on the downshift, and that is pretty cool because other vehicles like the 370Z from Nissan also have that feature. You also have in this vehicle the multi-display digital readout here that changes from drive mode to drive mode. So we're in touring, and it has the digital tack around the big centered speedometer. That's also where you use these buttons here on the steering wheel to change through the trip computer, very much like our Dodge Charger actually. So the only gripe there is that you can only see one thing at a time as you go through the information cluster. And if you go left, or in this case right is grayed out, but if you go left, you can also change the status in here. It says info, then performance, audio, phone, navigation, setting. And what's neat if you go to performance is that you get a picture of the car, You can get your lateral your G-force. You can get your acceleration, so 0 to 60 performance timer. You can get your lap timing, all right here. Oil temp, oil pressure, battery voltage, trans fluid temp, the tire temperature. It tells me that my tires are warm. I mean, they really thought through all of this. Go back up to info and you get your trip A, average fuel economy, trip B, fuel range, oil life, all of this. Your tire PSI is going to be in your info section. There is almost too much information in this vehicle, and I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because there's never too much information when it comes to a performance vehicle. I know that as this vehicle's been driven, and at least since this particular status piece has been reset, it says we've used 61.5 gallons. Now that's not me personally, that's probably the majority of this 4,200 miles, almost 43, that is on this 2014 Stingray. I'm talking fast, I'm excited. That's what this car does to you, and it shifts beautifully. The clutch is a little on the heavy side. It reminds me of the first generation Porsche Boxsters. I used to drive those back when I was a younger lad, if you will, and I was in high school, and we had two of those, you know, a 99 and an 01, and what I will tell you is that this clutch reminds me of that first generation Porsche Boxster. It's heavy, but it has a very exact and precise release of the clutch. You know when it's going to engage, and you know what you're going to get from the vehicle. In fact, I would say it's fairly easy to drive, but if you're going to go for the manual and you hate stop and go traffic, I will tell you that it is going to take your legs some getting used to hold this clutch down in traffic, because it is a little bit on the heavier side. Now, one of the other things I'd like to point out about this vehicle is that in some modes, it doesn't tell you your speed in a digital readout. So you've got your analog gauge over here, but it's kind of hard to read because it goes 20, 40, 60, 80, and otherwise you have to read the lines. But if you switch to sport mode, it will actually give you dual readouts, where it gives you your speed up here above whatever you're looking at in the trip computer. It is indeed a very quick car. That is 74 miles an hour right there without even trying. And that is what you're going to have to curb yourself with in this vehicle. In Velocity Yellow, like we have here, with the black 19-inch rims in the front, the black 20-inch rims in the back, and the C51 performance package, it's hard to imagine needing something like the Z06 or the penultimate when they come out with the Super Corvette and above the Z06. So it's hard to imagine even needing any of that in a car that is performance oriented as this Stingray is right here, and it's kind of base trim, if you will. Now back to the interior, you've got a touchscreen audio system here, we've got the satellite, we've got our climate control with the number in here, and your fan speed here, or your auto. Now what's interesting is the passenger dual climate control is over there under the far right blower housing, or if you will, dash vent, I should say. The digital readout and temp control is over there, so they don't have to try to reach past this. You also have your cigarette lighter adapter here, cup holders, your magnetic ride control, and drive mode change right here, traction control on and off, and anti-skid control here when you hold it. Inside the console, you have two USB ports, an SD card reader, and your aux port, and another power port here inside the console. Now, this is the only part of the car that seems a little cheap, maybe along with the visors here. But the rest, you have this soft touch on the doors, Bose audio system, you have the contrast piping here on the doors. I have to say that they have put a lot of thought into this vehicle, and I like it quite a bit. In fact, I think it is a vehicle that is going to surprise a a lot of people. So we're going to actually also show you here what its turning radius is like, because this is a very wide car and I'm on a 5-lane street here, and with this little inset here, we're going to hook the wheels, and it almost turns right inside that 2-lane area. But it is going to take you more to turn this car around because of the size. But all in all, it's pretty maneuverable. And in the sport mode, it's a stiffer steering. In the touring mode, it is a lighter steering, and you will be able to easily park it around town. So it definitely, I think, is a more drivable vehicle in 2014 as well. Now, from a performance perspective, you can see there we're in the track gauge, and I'm just going to switch it around. Let's see, that's eco, and that's touring. Okay, so we're back in the kind of quiet touring mode. We could go to eco mode, and it would dumb down the power some and help you get the most fuel economy you can. This vehicle with all the options, oh, and this neat feature, I don't know if you can see that, but we'll get a video clip of it. The screen drops, there's another port behind the radio here and a cubby hole so that you can plug, basically I believe that's your iPod connector back there, but your aux port's in here. This is a clever vehicle. They've thought about a lot of stuff, and this vehicle doesn't have the navigation, but you would have this similar display if you did have navigation. And I like that a lot. You also don't have heated seats in this particular option package. To get all of that, you have to go up to the 2LT option group, which would set you back a few more $1,000s. This vehicle is tested is just over $62,000, somewhere between $62,000 and $63,000, which I think is a steal for the power and the fuel economy and the looks of this new Stingray. We're being very complimentary to GM in this vehicle because I think they finally, again, hit it out of the park with this new Corvette. I think we felt the same way in the late 90s when they redesigned the Corvette with that beautiful flip-up light treatment. They made it the wider body, more like it is today, but it was new then. It went from that kind of narrower early 90s look to that wider body Corvette that people fell in love with, and that design kind of stayed with the Corvette for quite a while, slowly being reformed across the generations with less dramatic change over those years, whereas this is very dramatic for 2014, and it is worth taking a look at for sure if you are a Corvette aficionado. So that's what we have to talk about in this Corvette. But all in all, what you need to know is that this is a very powerful, well-mannered, it drives well, it steers well, it's comfortable, it has multiple modes, it has decent fuel economy for such a performance car. It's probably one of the best with this kind of power out on the road. 0 to 60 with these package options, right about 3.8 seconds, which is phenomenal. I love this vehicle. I would own one in a heartbeat, and I don't say that about every car that we test. In fact, this is a vehicle that lets you get back to basics and still helps you out with all the traction features. You can still turn them all off, put it in track mode, take it for a track day, and this thing will be a real handful out on the course with so much power. I'm Jonathan McGrew. We'll have the real wrap up coming up next. So that's the real video, the real review on the all-new 2014 Corvette Stingray. Yes, Chevrolet has brought us the all-new C7, and, well, I think this really is the penultimate Corvette now. There has not been a Corvette like this in the last decade or so that has really tickled my fancy. Yes, there has been some great Corvettes and some great performance, but they all seem to still lack something in the interior quality department and somewhat even on the exterior compared to some of the other vehicles out on the market. But Chevrolet has gone back to its heritage with the Stingray. You get the lovely Stingray down the side of the car, the little emblem that just sets it off, and it does give you that sense that they have put a lot of thought and design into this car. You have 460 horsepower with the performance exhaust, 455 without. We're glad to have that extra 5 horsepower in the 6.2 liter V8 we have here. See, the horses agree. It is a lot of power coming out of the base. Yes, I've said base, basically, with the Z51 option package on it, so it's the competition package and the magnetic ride control suspension. Everything you could want. This car has a touring mode where it's nice and quiet and the exhaust isn't too intrusive, so you can sneak home at midnight. But then you can turn it to sport and track mode and it becomes that loud, growling vehicle that you expect it to be out at the track and out when you're trying to impress your friends, because you know we all want to. It is a vehicle that will get 17 miles per gallon in town and 29 miles per gallon out on the highway with the 7-speed manual transmission. And that makes it one of the least thirsty, and even the first drive impressions from the big auto houses agreed, the least thirsty sports or muscle car out on the market. It is fantastic. GM deserves a lot of credit, and now we have to wait and see how reliable and how well it holds up. Those are the questions we can't really answer, but we can say that anyone who decides to buy one of these is going to be getting a lot of attention, is going to be Mr. or Mrs. Popular, and it's a fantastic car to drive, in my opinion, from this Real Video perspective. I'm Jonathan McGrew. This is Real Auto Reports right here from Real Auto Ranch with the horses that tend to agree, like that this is a great Corvette. We'll see you down the road.